Hello, it's Tom from Digital Foundry.
And it's Richard here.
So today we thought we'd look at a separate topic on Quantum Break which we didn't quite cover in our initial analysis, which is what is the game's native resolution. Now we've had a few discussions about this in Office and it seems there are a few factors in play here. Specifically that the game renders its effects at 720p as we found out with the developer's SIGGRAPH report in 2015. Now in this we found out that the ambient occlusion effects and screen space reflections all run at 720p to factor in the render time on Xbox One. So that's 33.3 milliseconds it's targeting as a 30fps game. And the end result is that when we came to analyse the game ourselves with a pixel count, it looks very much like a 720p title, and yet in the same paper it also mentions that the final output is 1080p. To get some clarity on this we went to Remedy ourselves and we're waiting on an official response on exactly what approach has been used here, but it is interesting to note they have some prior history with some complex rendering techniques with their games, with Alan Wake as an example on the Xbox 360 which ran at an unusual resolution for the time.
Yeah, it was a 960 by 544 I believe on Xbox 360, and this whole debate is kind of very reminiscent of exactly what happened back then before the launch of that title, where there was quite a lot of controversy about the game and how it looked and the fact that previous assets were shown running at a higher resolution. Now, I don't really have too much of a problem with Alan Wake's resolution. It is low, but the low contrast artwork along with 4x multi-sampling anti-aliasing, I thought it looked really nice, and it wasn't really until we saw the PC version that we could see what the additional resolution could bring to the table, and I suspect it will be exactly the same with Quantum Break. But there's quite a lot of elements to Quantum Break where you think, well, you know, maybe the resolution is low, but to what extent does it actually matter?
In Alan Wake's case, it had a lot of dark areas which could hide that deficit in resolution.
Yeah, I guess the question is, what do you actually see? What are the actual artifacts of running at a lower resolution? And typically it's kind of stair-step aliasing along harsh geometric edges.
Well, in this case, we're kind of looking at some really heavy post-process anti-aliasing to deal with that. I think we're up against it when it comes to pinpointing exactly what it is. There's a lot of post, a lot of film grain, motion blur, and underneath that it's really hard to discern exactly what they're using to reduce that. But in another sense, it's clear that the game is well above what we'd expect in terms of a 720p image just laid out bare.
There's no doubt that it's a soft presentation. Yeah, there's no sort of harsh stair-step artifacts along geometric edges. So the main issue that we have with 720p games is kind of circumvented here, and we've taken a good look at the anti-aliasing technique that's being used here. And while we're still waiting to get the full technical details from Remedy, we suspect that they're using some form of post-process anti-aliasing with a temporal component. So information from previous frames is blended in with the current one.
Which is an interesting technique. Do you reckon it's the hybrid reconstruction that we saw in other games, like Killzone Shadowfall?
It's really difficult to say, because when you're in this kind of area, when you're seeing something that's so different from what you're used to, it's really difficult to get a firm lock on what you're actually seeing and how it's actually operating. But when the scene is static, you can see that edges are virtually non-existent, which does solve the main issue that you have with a lower resolution frame buffer. But when you are in motion, you do see more aliasing in effect.
Yeah, I think in practice it kind of looks like a 720p image. So long as the camera's moving you do see that softness, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes too.
There's some really impressive technology in Quantum Break, and I don't think resolution necessarily defines the quality of the image here. Similar to Alan Wake actually.
Yeah, well, we'll keep you posted on that note. Thanks for watching and hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, see you later.